In the greatest battle of the last Great War, the future would be decided between a young soldier.
You've promised people a victory I can't deliver.
And the man sent to kill him.
How are you gonna find this young man?
I'll fix it so that he's the one who finds me.
Action! It's the story of this incredible duel in the midst of this huge battle. And I was very fascinated by the fact that it was about sharpshooters.
There's always been something kind of mythical about the sniper. It's like this lone warrior. And that's something that appealed to me as an actor.
I mean, these guys sit for hours waiting for the right moment. So in the film, there is this very intimate struggle going on within this huge invasion.
I've never worked on a film of this scale. When you walk into Red Square, you step into another world.
These people have been put into very extraordinary circumstances. It was the turning point of the war, and it changed the whole course of history.
If you kill him, you can win the war for us.
Autumn 1942. The Nazis are at the height of their power. Hitler's armies are charging through the Soviet Union towards the oil fields of Asia. One last obstacle remains, a city on the Volga where the fate of the world is being decided, Stalingrad. This is the backdrop of the suspense thriller Enemy at the Gates, starring Joseph Fiennes, Jude Law, Rachel Weisz, Bob Hoskins, and Ed Harris.
When they retreat, you fire at them.
The film is directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, who was drawn to the true-life characters that inspired the story.
One of my writers came to me with great enthusiasm after having read 3 pages in a very thick history book dealing with the Second World War. And with that extraordinary story of this duel between a Russian sniper and an aristocratic sharpshooter from Germany.
It was a duel set in the siege of Stalingrad. Stalingrad was one of the biggest and bloodiest battles of World War II, and in the midst of this huge battle, there were 2 men who were hunting each other down, and the outcome of their duel would help to determine the outcome of the war.
The film opens with the harrowing transport of thousands of Russian soldiers across the Volga River to Stalingrad.
The recruits were packed onto steamers, barges, whatever they could find to just ferry them across the river. All that under a deluge of shells and bombs and explosions.
Among the troops is a young sharpshooter named Vassili Zaitsev. In casting this role, Annaud was looking for an actor who could convey both humanity and intensity.
Now we're back on Vassili. I met a lot of people, and I had seen an early cut of the talented Mr. Ripley. And I loved Jude. He's such an incredible actor, you know, he's remarkable.
Originally, after Ripley, I wanted to take a break to be with my family, and I wanted to take the time out to really choose something that appealed to me from the heart and from the guts. And when I read this and met with Jean-Jacques, there was such a good story and such an interesting subject matter, and it was a type of film I'd never been in before.
There's such a fierce intelligence and liveliness in Jude's eyes, but he can also be very quiet and internal. And Jude understood that it was about finding the complexity within the silence and the stillness. Because in fact, to be a sniper is very much about a man of action through stillness.
By the time Vassili arrives in Stalingrad, the Nazis have a distinct edge, and Soviet morale is at an all-time low.
Join your German comrades. They understand your suffering and will care more for you than your own officers.
Leading the Russians in their seemingly futile defense is Nikita Khrushchev, played by Bob Hoskins.
If the Germans capture this city, the entire country will collapse.
The Germans are just overrunning the place, and the Russians are in an appalling state. It was the most awful battle of the war.
I want our boys to raise their heads.
Give them hope.
Joseph Fiennes plays Danilov, an idealistic Russian officer.
We must tell magnificent stories, stories that excel sacrifice and bravery.
He passionately speaks about his belief in getting the troops to turn the grave situation in Stalingrad around.
We need to make examples, but examples to follow. What we need are heroes.
Do you know any heroes?
Thank you, Comrade Commissar.
Danilov finds the perfect inspiration in Vassili.
Vassili Zaitsev. Armed only with a rifle, he quickly made the fascist invader realize that from now on, he would be punished for every step he took in the motherland.
Vassili represents the ultimate hero and a symbol of someone that could instill hope and belief in a victory amongst the other troops, because his skills as a sniper were unparalleled. His ability to take down the opposition seemed to be never-ending, and so they created this kind of war hero out of him.
Hey, Vassili Zaitsev shot his 23rd.
colonel shot by Vassili Zaitsev.
He is an example to us all.
Hey, Vassili Zaitsev killed his 32nd
He has
German
the
officer.
patience of a...
Creating battle-torn Stalingrad was one of the greatest challenges for the filmmakers, who originally looked for an existing location in which to shoot.
Stalingrad doesn't exist anymore. And frankly, there is no place where I could have shot that. After scouting 18 countries and going to all those cities of Eastern Europe and destroyed districts of Czechoslovakia, of Lithuania, I didn't find anything, of course, you know, because what's